Hello again everybody, welcome back to Crochet Through Corona, and I hope you are having a good day. It seems like a little while since I put a video up, so it's quite nice to be redoing this one again, and especially this one. This is my own pattern of how to crochet a cross. We started doing a bit of preparation for Easter, and this seems very fitting to give us a bit of encouragement to think about what Easter is all about. I'll give you a clue. Love is the centre of Easter, but as you're making yours, you have a think about what Easter means to you. So it's time for us to crack on and get making. For this session you will need your hook, a darning needle, some scissors, some yarn already all loosened off and pulled through so you're not fighting with it as you go. And I'm going to remake this at a hopefully reasonable speed, but you can just pause the video or fast forward or rewind at any point, and then hopefully by the end of it you will have something that looks a bit like this. That yours might need blocking, and I'll explain what that is at the end. This already has been blocked, but without further ado, let's crack on. So we're taking the end of our yarn, taking it over our finger, pulling it down, taking our finger and thumb, pinching them together, yarn over the top, inserting the hook and pulling tight. Great, and we are off. Okay, so we are going to use the skills that we've already learnt. So we're going to make a foundation chain of 4. So we yarn over and pull through 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we're going to work single crochets back along the row. So we don't crochet in the first chain from hooks, that's the one that the yarn's coming through. We go in the second chain from hooks, and we're going underneath the top of this V just there. So insert the hook, yarn over, pull through, and then yarn over again and pull through both the loops on the hook, and there's our first single crochet. And we're going to move our fingers along and go into the next chain, do the same again, and then into the final chain, insert hook, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through both loops, and that's our first row complete. Now you should always have 3 stitches at the end of each row for the first part of this pattern. So you can see here I've got, let's see if I can get a bit clearer, 1, 2, 3. So we're looking for these V shapes, 1, 2, 3. And to turn, we're just going to chain 1 and then flip our work over and start going back. Only this time we're going in underneath the V. So underneath the first stitch, that's 1. And then into the next one here, 2. And the last one might be a bit fiddly, especially on this first row. But there we go. Oh, I nearly got it. Missed the thread there. So I've got that last stitch on my hook, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through both loops. And then we chain 1 and turn and repeat. So this bit of the pattern is really quite nice and repetitive, quite simple. I use that term loosely because I know that if you're just getting your head around all of this, it might not be feeling all that simple right now. And we're going to do 18 rows. So I'm not actually counting right now because I'll go back and count because I'm talking to you and I can't do both things at once despite being a woman. So there are many things I can do at the same time though. We'll move on from that. Okay, 1 row, 2 rows, 3 rows, 4 rows. So you kind of have this alternating pattern because one is going one way and one is the back of the stitch when you're coming back. So this is the front of the stitch, this V, and this is the back of the stitch. So you'll see that they alternate depending on which way you're crocheting. It's a massive V just came above my head, sorry, excuse me. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm just going to carry on for a little while, just keeping chaining 1 and turning and crocheting 3. Quite like a project like this because you can see the growth quite quickly, and I am not the most patient of people, and I do like a little bit of feedback to show that I am making progress, so this works quite nicely for me. I do think that that is where crochet has quite a positive impact on mental health, when you can just see that level of achievement and accomplishment. For me, I know that that has definitely been key on my recovery journey from my health issues, or at least acceptance journey of my health issues. It's quite nice to just feel like you've achieved something again, see something productive. I think especially for people who are possibly having to stop work at the minute with the state that the country's in, hopefully this can be a bit of a sense of achievement and productivity that might be lacking from other areas. And what I'm also really enjoying is being able to just sit and enjoy the sunshine today. I hope you've been enjoying the lovely weather. I'm feeling it's a real blessing. We've been outside pretty much all the time over the last few weeks. It's really making it so much easier to manage the children and keep them entertained. We much prefer being outside. I think a repetitive pattern like this just allows that time as well to just stop and think. I quite like thinking about what I'm thankful for. This is a really chaotic time in many ways for lots of people, but it's also a good time to stop and take stock of where you're at in life. We've realised that we have so many blessings. We're enjoying our garden space for one, enjoying having the creek, Ernest Little Creek, and its fields as our local exercise area, and being able to go out in the evening and just see a beautiful view while we go for a little walk and run with the children. So can I encourage you that as you're crocheting to just take some time to think what you're thankful for. There's a lot of negative stuff at the minute, and it is really good to just stop and be grateful for the things that we do have. That's not to say that the other stuff isn't still there and isn't still really tricky. It just helps put things into perspective a little bit. Alright, I'm just going to stop and count while I'm here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So I've got one more row to do, so this is my last chain and turn. And into the last stitch. And I'm just going to double check that that was my 18th row, because otherwise the pattern will go to pot. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Excellent. Now I'm going to chain 1, and I'm going to start crocheting down the side, which is basically means going into the same stitch this time. So just single crochet, and then I'm going to go into this next space, and I'm going to try and separate 2 threads to make a bit of a fake stitch on my hook. Yeah, so I've got a bit of a V shape there from 2 threads, and I'm just going to single crochet into that one. And I need to have 5 single crochets down this side. So we've got 1 in that first stitch. This is my second, my third, my fourth, bit fiddly, and then my 5th. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Excellent. And then we're going to chain 1, 2, 3, 4. That's chain 4. And we're not going to crochet into that first stitch, remember, we're starting in our second chain from hook, and we're going to crochet across 3. 1, 2, 3. And then we are going to slip stitch into the next row. So I'm just going to put the 2 threads on my hook. I'm going to yarn over and pull through like I do with a single crochet, and then instead of yarning over again, I'm just going to carry on and pull that through the other loop on the hook as well, and that is my slip stitch done. And then turn in my work, and I'm going back into the 3 single crochets. So make sure you don't go back into the slip stitch that you've just made, which will be this tight gap here. We're going into the first stitch here. 1, 2, 3, and then chain 1 and turn again, and we're going back 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to slip stitch again. So we're inserting our hook, yarn over and pull through, and then carry on and pull through the other loop on your hook. We're then going to continue with crocheting around the outside of our cross. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then the 11th one is going to be in the first foundation chain, so 11. And then we chain 1 because we're at a corner again. This just allows a little bit more room for us to get that nice chain kind of change of direction, and then we single crochet back into the same stitch. You've got 1, chain 1, and then another single crochet into the same stitch, and then we go into the next 2 foundation chains, 1, 2, and I'm just going to pause here to unravel a bit more yarn. And then, because it's another corner, we're going to chain 1 and single crochet into the same stitch again. So chain 1 and then into the same stitch, and I'm going to pinch this tail end and keep it trapped underneath so that I'm sewing it in as I go, avoiding sewing in ends at the end. And then we're just going to carry on up the side. So going 1, I've gone into the wrong part there, so actually, oh no, not 1, 2, 3. Oh, that wasn't very good. I didn't get 2 pieces of yarn over, so I'm just going to try that again. Very fiddly, these side bits. 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm going to drop that one now, because I think that's well and truly attached. 9, 10, 11, and I'm going to go 12, and then with that 12th one I'm going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I'm going to come back, second chain from hook, and do 3 single crochets across. Ready? 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to slip stitch into the row above. So yarn over and pull through, and continue and pull through the one on your hook. Flip it over, and we're going to repeat the 3 single crochets. Lost my yarn. 1, 2, and 3. Remember that third one is a little bit tricky on the end there. And then chain 1 and turn. And going back 1, 2, 3. And again we're going to slip stitch to join it to the cross into the next row. So that might be a little bit more fiddly this time. As I said in previous videos, it's not an exact science where to insert your hook to crochet up a side of a row. So I've yarned over and pulled through, and I'm just going to pull through the one on my hook again, and that is a slip stitch complete. And then I'm going to carry on with my crocheting up the side. So I want another 4. 1, 2, 3, and then this is my last one. Whoa. Finding these stitches at the end can be quite tricky. 4, and then we're going to chain 1, and we're going to cast off at this point. So we're going to leave, don't pull your chain too tight because that will make it look a bit silly at the end. So we need to do a reasonable side chain, and then pull some yarn through, cut your yarn, and continue to pull it through. Now we're going to do an invisible join, which you might have already seen in some of my other videos, but we will just recap it. I'm going to thread our darning needle, and we're going to mimic a stitch, and we're going to do that by inserting it underneath the V of the next stitch. There, can you see that? I haven't gone underneath the next stitch and pulling through. And then I'm going to go back into the stitch that I just came out of, which was our chain stitch, and then I'm going to also thread my needle down the back of the work as well while I go. So I'm going into that, back into that previous V. Now don't pull through too tight because you don't want to make it have a funny edge, but there we go. I've just done my invisible join because now it just looks like a continual row of V's, which are our stitches, and we can just sew this tail in. So same principle as all the other times, you're just going back and 2, catching different threads as you go. There we go, 3 times. I'm just going to pinch that one. And we can cut this one off down here because we already trapped that as we crocheted back up the side. And now, as you can see, there are just a few bits that haven't been crocheted around. So we're going to go back and crochet around the edges of these bits here to make sure it all looks nice and even. So to do that, we take the tension of the yarn, and then we pin the loose bit down the back of the work, and we insert our hook in this corner joint here. You can see that clearly. So it's that last stitch there, just before we turn. And I'm just going to insert my hook behind and pull it through. So I've now got some yarn through, and I'm going to chain one, and that's attached it to my work. I'm then going to go into the top of the chains here and just single crochet 3 across. 1, 2 and 3 in the corner there. And just like we were doing when we were going around the body of the work, we're going to chain 1 before going back into the same stitch when we get to the corners. And along the edge we will need another 2, 1, 2, and again chain 1 and then cast off, and we'll do another invisible join. And we're just going to go underneath the V from the next stitch, which is here, and pull through, and then back in where we just came from, and sewing along as we do, so it can be the start of our casting off and sewing in. There we go, just neatening it up a bit. I'm going to come back and sew that in a minute, because I'm worried that my phone is going to run out of space. So I'll just trim that, because actually it's not going to be played with like a toy, so it's not actually that much of a risk of coming out. And then we need to do the same on the other side here. So I'm taking the tension as I normally would around my finger. I've done that wrong. Yeah, I'm feeling the pressure now. There we go. And I'm going to pin this bit round the out, pin this bit behind my work, just here. And again I'm going right into that corner stitch just there, and I'm going to pull some yarn through and chain 1, and then go back along that foundation chain, and at the corner chain 1 and go back into the same stitch, and then do 2 more single crochets along the edge. And then finally chain 1 before casting off again. And then we'll do one last invisible join. And then we're just going to need to sew that last bit in again. So threading through, threading back, and I suggest you do this a couple more times just to secure it properly. And the same with where you've attached the yarn, that bit will also need sewing in. I'm going to ignore those for a minute so I can just tell you how to finish off. You can see we now have a very similar shape to the cross that I showed you at the beginning, but the corners aren't quite as square and it isn't quite as neat. So the way that you can make this look that little bit more professional and finished off is by a technique called blocking. Now blocking literally means to kind of pin it out and let it dry in a neat fashion. So you can get professional blocking boards like this, and it is just a foam mat. You can use a cork board if you've got one of those at home. If you have like a cushion that's quite firm that you have, you could, and some extra needles, you could use that to kind of pin it in there. Anyway, I'll show you what you're trying to achieve first, and then you can work out what you've got in your house. I used to use, children had foam mats a bit thinner than this, and I used to just use drawing pins. Actually, I used some of Josh's nails for a bit. And we're just going to go into the corners and pin them out so they kind of looking a little bit more square. I'm just going to go all the way around doing this. I'm also going to pin out these middle bits just here so that they can get a bit more in line. As I say, you could just use drawing pins for this, or needles. If you haven't got children lying around, you could just stab a needle in there. What else could you use? Kebab skewers. I'm sure you can come up with something. Drawing pins might, not drawing pins, safety pins might work as well. And just putting pull that bit out there. Can you see what I'm doing? Just pulling out the tension a bit to where I think it makes a nicer shape as I go. Just adjust it a bit. I've put that one in. And now I will just lift that up so you can see. So it's all pinned out. Now we just dampen this with some water, and then we leave it to dry. And whenever it's dry, it should kind of hold that shape a bit more and come out looking a bit neater, like this one here. So hopefully now you can enjoy your cross as you look at it. Maybe think about what the real meaning of Easter is, and don't forget that Easter doesn't end at the cross, and that's what makes it so special. It ends with the empty tomb, and I'll leave you to think about that. Happy hooking, and see you again soon.